Honestly wanted to get into the habit of going a bit more live and speaking about some of the ideas that has flooded my mind. So today is the 15th of January. It's 15 days already passed and we are in the new month of the new year 2026, and I can already feel like I'm pretty much dying internally. I'm not gonna lie about how grateful I am. I got a good job. Um, Great colleagues that I work with, and sometimes can be tiring, but at the same time, also, it's just something that I have to look forward to going every day until I can figure things out. And honestly speaking, I think one of the most difficult lessons I've had to learn, especially from last year, was realizing that unless I write down what I want to do in my private time, I will not be able to get to it. I could set up reminders, uh, put it on my calendar or whatsoever. As long as it's not in my book, as long as it's not written somewhere where I can actually go back and look into those ideas, I pretty much am wasting time. And that's kind of like how it feels. In the beginning, I'll put so much time into writing. I've like, um, written over, I would say more or less 100 articles, and I've put in the effort to try to continue to write because I don't want to get lazy. I want to be able to continue to write as much as I can, and that way it helps me figure my you know my understanding of the world more, and I also get to see how people view me and perceive me, especially the ones that are reacting to my writings, because a lot of the times, like, people don't really react to anything you put out there. And my um, ordeal has been like, it's not always about just like what people react to, but rather what you are happy about putting out there. And a lot of the times, sometimes you may feel very demotivated because you may find yourself doubting whether or not people are interested with the craft that you're putting out. So I've been writing articles since for the past 4 years now. So I would say since 2023. I actually initially started writing prior to that, but I continued writing and made it sort of like a profession for me. Beginning of 2023, I got onto Medium. I started writing articles, and I've shared quite a lot of articles that I'm even willing to share for anyone interested. But my goal right now has been to just try to keep it a buck and continue to like do what I can in terms of um, meditating on my craft, like meditating on having an online presence without also putting too much of myself out there. And it can be irritating sometimes when you, the more you put yourself out there, the less it becomes active, like the less people want to interact with you, which sucks sometimes. It really sucks. But at the end of the day, I really wanted to talk about how my job is kind of killing my dream to want to build. And I've written so many articles about building companies, building empires, building businesses of my own. And the more and more I write, the more I kind of feel very, uh, my drive and the discipline that I had in the past is kind of lost. It kind of goes away. And sometimes it drives me crazy. It drives me crazy. And people do not understand this. Sometimes ask me, like, why, why do you feel this way? Or how do you feel that way? And I oftentimes don't know how to explain it. It's a very weird feeling. It's a kind of feeling that you don't want to have. The lack of a lack of discipline, a lack of not being able to pursue your dream is what's killing a lot of people. And it has killed me as well. It has killed me as well. I've looked at sometimes if it's worth it, you know. I write all these articles and I still have people asking me what do I do in my spare time. I write threads. I still have people wondering what do I do online. I share content. I talk about my work. I pretty much talk about everything. I still have people asking me like, what do you do? You know. So I'm just wondering if my approach is appropriate or if my approach is clear enough or well defined for people to understand. And it's a bit hard, but I wrote a little something by the end of last year on discipline. I was wondering maybe if I could just read it for those who are interested. And maybe in the comment section, someone can tell me if they find it interesting. And then maybe I'll end off by speaking about how my job, everyday job, sometimes does leave me stranded. Um, let's see. I wrote this last year in December, something on discipline. Um, Everyone has some level of discipline. Some are willing to exercise it beyond the point where it's not well exercised. There are consequences. Actually, sorry, I'm going to read that wrong. Everyone has some level of discipline. Some are willing to exercise it beyond the point where if it's not well exercised, there are consequences. If you clock in at work every day on time, Monday to Friday, you are disciplined. You don't only do this because you have to, but because you understand the consequences of being late for work. Punishment. Do it a number of times and you might get fired. So you create discipline. You set an alarm clock at a specific time. You get out of bed, get ready, and head to work. Every day you are able to do so, not because you are motivated by someone shouting in your ears or David Goggins popping into your bedroom every morning. No, it's because you are disciplined. That's what it really is. You repeat a process over a period of time and build a routine around it. Once you get to a point where no one has to remind you to do it but yourself, you are disciplined. You are a disciplined man or woman. Imagine if this level of understanding of what discipline is could be put to more use, not only in building someone else's empire, but pitching up for work. Sorry, not only in building someone else's empire, but pitching up for work, but in building a body of work of your own. How would being disciplined for yourself change your trajectory? Would you be able to accomplish more? Would it be easier if no one had to remind you that this is for your future good? Does your outcome matter more? Once you understand just how simple discipline is, you can definitely achieve more in your own life, relationship, and career. The only question that remains is what would be the consequence of a lack of discipline in your life? That question, I'll leave it up to you to decide. So, I wrote this, I actually wrote this like, I think I wrote this, I don't know what kind of thought I was in, but I was motivated by the fact that a lot of the times, and this was actually, yes, I remember correctly now. This was the beginning of the year when we were about to close work. I was constantly motivated by the idea that um, you went to work the whole year. You pretty much just worked for someone else or to build someone else's dream, right? But what did you do for yourself? So when I was asking myself these few questions, then the idea of discipline came to mind. I think I was trying to convince myself, and I pretty much did. I convinced myself that because I was able to wake up every day morning at a specific time, to pitch up at someone else's job and do what was required of me. That showed some kind of level of discipline that I did not require anyone else to convince me, to explain to me. And I think the thought behind this was that I was trying to convince people everybody has some kind of level of discipline. Everybody knows exactly what they want if they just put their mind to it. And it can be hard sometimes to believe that, but it's true. It's true because I've seen individuals constantly beat themselves up for not doing specific things. And oftentimes, for other people, what they are beating themselves up for might not be exactly something very important, but to that one particular individual, that seems like it was something that they needed to do in order for them to feel some kind of fulfillment within themselves, right? And even just the fact of beating an addiction, like you'd find some people who are addicted to certain habits that they just don't want to give up on, right? So now they set this disciplines within a specific frame, a time frame, and they tell themselves that within first week to second week, I want to be able to not relapse, for example. I want to be able to not drink or smoke or fall back onto this particular habit. And they set themselves on those rules. Now, that's what you call governed discipline. And I think I'm coining that term up. It's not a real term, but governed discipline is more like a discipline that you're governing all the time. It's discipline that you set rules around it and you try and place your own consequences because now when you tell yourself, if I relapse within this period, that means I'm going to take away certain reward. And I think people do that all the time. So it's the same kind of thought that I had behind writing this article about discipline. I was trying to convince myself that people are disciplined, they just don't know it sometimes. And especially discipline that is exercised in such a way that it doesn't have to be reminded, it just becomes natural. When you are expected to wake up every day to go to work, pitch up at the workplace, and do exactly what's expected of you at a specific time, uh, you are disciplined. That's discipline. I think we spent even our days going to school from grade one, grade R to grade 12, which is obviously high school. We wake up, that's 12 years of our lives being disciplined to do exactly that. And do I believe that that kind of lifestyle should be enforced on everyone? No, absolutely not. I think it's not at some point, it's not even a matter of a choice. It's just something that we are fortunately do not, most of us do not have that ability to choose. But once you become an adult and you have the choice to choose whether or not you want to continue that same lifestyle, you then get to decide if that's the lifestyle that you want to live for the rest of your life, where education is what governs your future, right? And I'm not one to speak down on what education can do for people. I personally did not have the opportunity to study further. I do see myself wanting to go study further, but I don't think that's something that I'm willing to do right now until I can actually understand what I want to do with my own life. Does that scare me sometimes? Personally, no. It's because it's not the requirement today to be an educated person. And the kind of education I'm referring to is an educated person sitting in an institution, learning things, and then regurgitating them over on a paper or exam test, expected to give the right answer. That is not expected of you for you to become successful. Okay. And not speaking from a point of a successful person, but I can definitely vouch for people who choose to take a gap year this year. Anyone who chooses to not want to study further and maybe pursue a dream of their own. Why not? Because to be honest, like if you choose to want to take a gap year to uncover yourself, understand yourself, because you've spent your whole life basically studying, that's an amazing thing to do. And anybody who would be probably watching this, they might want to learn something new about themselves. They might want to pursue some lifestyle that they've never dabbled into, and it's pretty much that. So you can go ahead and actually pursue that if you wished and if you wanted to. Now, back to the whole discussion of why I believe this video was actually meant to be recorded. I am at a point where I feel a bit stuck because I feel like even though I'm satisfied with my job, I'm happy that I'm able to pay bills. I'm happy that I'm able to do all these things that I'm able to do. Um, I still feel like I don't know if you guys can hear me. Yeah, okay. I still feel like my dream is basically being my dream is drowning as I'm working in corporate, and I don't want to continue working in corporate for the longest. I would like to pursue this dream of mine and get to a point where I'm ultimately satisfied with the outcomes of what I can do for myself. And there is this myth that as adults we don't pursue dreams. Adults do not pursue dreams. Adults just have lives where they pay bills. They basically do what's necessary for them to survive. Survival is great. Survival is good. Survival is what keeps us alive. Because if you visit an old age home, you'll find old people on the brink of death, sometimes even not willing to wake up tomorrow or don't even want to wake up tomorrow because they have nothing to look forward to. And I think it's that the excitement of being alive is the fact that we get that thrill from just wanting to see how far we can reach certain levels of excitement. And that's really it. Because when we eventually achieve what we want, it feels like there was no thrill behind it. In fact, the part of achievement never feels like there's a thrill. Have you ever noticed maybe rich people probably could define this or describe this a bit more better than I could? I've seen rich people do crazy stuff because they've reached the thrill of their wealth. They reached they've accumulated so much money, but because there's nothing more to be done thereafter, that's when you find people like the Epsteins and all these other rich people who are just dabbling into things that us ordinary beings find very weird. It's not because they've lost it or they are extraterrestrial, but it's just because they've reached their peak of wealth, and the only thing that's left for them is to, I guess, question things and maybe try and do things. They try to push the boundaries a little bit extra. So my job, the corporate job that I have, does not give me that thrill. I get excited paying bills, and usually the pendulum goes. You live in paycheck to paycheck. It's you get paid on whether it's on the 21st or on the first, you get paid, and then from you got literally 5 days, okay? Because I get paid like around the 21st of every month, right? So you only have 5 days of thrills or 5 days of excitement. So from the 21st to the 30th, the 31st, that's maybe 6 days. Anything thereafter just becomes a new month, and now you have to restart all over again. And that's the kind of thrill that I'm trying to get away from, and I don't like that. So yeah, don't get me wrong, I am grateful for the job right now. At some point, I will eventually say I'm no longer grateful for this. I want more. I want something different, and then I'm gonna just give in my resignation letter and bounce. But until I can get there, I think right now I'm solely gonna focus on trying to rebuild and reshape. Like I said in the beginning of this video, it sometimes feel like if you don't write things down, it feels like you will not be able to execute it because it needs to be written down so that you can read it and see it right there. I need to write things down and put it on my wall. And then when I read about it, I'm able to look back and say, this is what you wrote. And this is a promise you made to yourself, and you have to keep it. And when I constantly do that, that's pretty much how I'm going to be convinced to complete what I want to complete. Um, I have something to share. So the the end of last week, I bought a book. Again, people are very skeptical about books, but I'm trying to. I think for me, reading is about trying to improve my vocabulary. I am bilingual. I speak about 5 languages. So sometimes I don't feel like English is my first language. So I read books. And when I do, it helps me when I see the words and I look at the words and I read about the words, and it helps me understand them better. So this is one that I picked up on Take a Lot, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Some people have called this book a scam. Some people have said all sort of things about this book. I think I like it. I don't really care. I'm not gonna go by people's opinions. Um, and also, like reading this book, they've told me like, oh, there's like some kind of secrets that you'll find on your. It's not that. Like to be honest, when you read books, I personally have my own opinion about how I read books. There are some people who find books like this and then they start reading it and they buy into the idea so much that if you think and grow rich, or if you think, then you will grow rich. Anyways, I think I was trying to play upon the words of just think and grow rich. But some people buy into this idea that the letters of the books itself is exactly like, if you take it literally, what the author means is exactly. I think for me, I take books like the way I would watch movies. Sometimes you find a movie that the director or the producers of the film was just conveying their own thought, and they expect you to take whatever story is given to you and try to mold your own imagination around it. Like take what you've got and just mold your imagination around it and just make sense of what you think is happening in the movie. And as much as many people might disagree with that, but that's just how I feel about this. It's the same thing. It's the same thing that I feel about this book. I think the author is not trying. There is no for me. This is my opinion. Again, I'm not even deep into the book. Just reading the first few pages, the language of the book convinced me that there is no secret in this book. Like there's no secret that's going to make me rich in this book. These are stories of individuals, a story of people, okay, very wealthy people, unfortunately, that have lived and passed throughout time with their experiences. What I take from this book is I get to read about the experiences and I try to understand and make sense of what they experience, and I try to use that, puzzle up my own experience, and see if I'm walking maybe in the same steps. That's it. There's no secret in this book that will point me to some kind of treasure hunt. As much as the author may use language such as it's there's a thought, it's magical, there's an experience. For me, I don't really buy into that. Um, I don't really buy into that. But yeah, so that's how far I've read so far. That's just the beginning. Hopefully, I come back and I get to share. And maybe I could just, there's one particular page, on page 11, the author speaks about education. He says, what is education anyway? This has been answered in full detail. As far as schooling is concerned, many of these men had very little. John Wanamaker once told me that what little schooling he had, he acquired in very much the same manner as modern locomotive takes on water by scooping it up as it runs. Henry Ford never reached high school, let alone college. I'm not attempting to minimize the value of schooling, but I'm trying to express my earnest belief that those who master and apply the secret will reach high stations, accumulate riches, and bargain with life on their own terms, even if their schooling has been mean Asia. Somewhere as you read the secret of which I refer will jump from the page and stand boldly before you. If you are ready for it, when it appears, you will recognize it. See, so it's that kind of language. That's the kind of language that the author is using here, Napoleon Hill. It's not that special. It's just a book, and yeah, I'm gonna try and use this to improve my vocabulary. And for me, learning is a continuous thing. Try to learn every day, and hopefully, this was a very interesting video. And I hope to share more of my writings in the days to come. Right. Peace out.